Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with founder, SaaS Monetization, and pricing guru, James Wilton. He is the founder and managing partner of Monevate, a consulting firm focused on monetization for fast-growing tech companies, and previously led McKinsey's pricing practice for startups. He has over 12 years of experience helping growing companies figure out how to capture more of the value that they create through creative pricing and packaging. Dig this story. Man, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, sir. So where are you located?
I live in Saratoga Springs in upstate New York.
Oh, cool, man. All right. Well, I'm in the middle of the country. I'm in Kansas City.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, yeah, you're quite a guru. I'm looking forward to delving into your world of work. And before we get there, the pandemic did quite a turn for all of us. 4 years ago, we were trying to figure out how to get out, what the ramifications were going to be. How did you ultimately get through the pandemic, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
I think the pandemic, obviously it was hard for everybody, but I think it was perhaps easier for me than it was for some other people. Back before the pandemic, right, I was at McKinsey, and I was traveling pretty much every week, client work at that point. It had got back to the point when I was really, four days away from home every single week, which was tough living in Saratoga as I did, because, the biggest airport up near me is Albany, which is, by no means a big airport. You're kind of connecting everywhere. It's quite difficult to do a job that involves travel being based here. And then the pandemic hit, and of course, everything switched to remote. And suddenly everything was very much easier for me because the expectations were that I was at home the whole time. So it was significantly easier on my day to day. And that was really one of the things that contributed to me forming Monevate, because the idea of having a consulting firm that was fully remote was just a lot more viable than it was previously.
So talk to me a little bit about exactly what you do here in 2024 on a daily basis. And to do that, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the curious kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Yeah, absolutely. Explaining management consulting to children is always difficult. I think it's it's a bit of an abstract profession. But yeah, I think explaining to a third grader, I would say that I help businesses with their problems, right? It's like that you have a doctor for people who helps fix people when they're sick. I think management consultants fix businesses when there's something broken or could be better. And in my field of management consulting within my firm Monevate, we're specifically focused on a certain type of people. So be SaaS businesses, which are software products which are sold online, and it's a specific set of problems as well. So it's like having a specialist doctor, my specialty being pricing strategy. So it's really helping these software companies understand how they should be pricing and packaging and positioning their products to be able to maximize the amount of value that they can capture in their transactions.
So take me back to when you were in the third grade. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
Back in the third grade, oh god, I never can remember at that point. I think back at that point, I probably wanted to be a journalist. I think I got really into writing when I was around that age. So I thought, career that involved writing a lot would be a journalist. So that's where I got to. When I got a little bit older, I kind of got more into science. So then I thought I would be a scientist, right? I had like aspirations of working for NASA or something.
So what were the early seeds that were planted into you to get this acumen, to get to this place in business? What were some of the things that developed and evolved to lead into who you are today?
Sorry, say that again, Joe.
What were some of the formative seeds that were planted into you that grew into who you are and to give you this business savvy that you have today?
Yeah, I think it was a very roundabout walk that got me here, really. I think so. So I said, wanted to be a journalist when I was very young, wanted to be a scientist when I was in, equivalent to middle school and high school, and went to university to do science, and then very quickly found out that actually probably really didn't want to be a scientist anymore. I found that when I got to university level, it just got a little bit abstract, and I kind of I lost interest. So I ended up spending a lot of my university time doing comedy and drama and getting involved in, other parts of university life. So I left college not really knowing what I wanted to do at all. So I had to kind of, start and work it out from scratch at that point. Um, and actually, I took a job right out of college where I took a sales role. I was basically a sales rep working for a conference company where my job was to cold call business executives who would be good profiles to attend these events that this company was putting on, and just try to persuade them to come to these events. And I think that was good. It was my first real job, and there was a lot of learnings in there. I'd never had to sell anything before, and I definitely learned how to do that. But I also kind of really realized that that was not my calling. It wasn't something that I was naturally good at. So it really kind of gave me a kick to try to figure out what I was good at and what I did want to do. So I did a bit of research, and I stumbled upon management consulting mainly because when I looked at the skills required, it was a they generally would want people to have good problem solving skills, and I felt I'd really developed that through the scientific training that I'd done. They wanted good communication skills, which I think I'd got through my comedy and drama, and in general always enjoyed writing. And I also just like the idea of the management consulting lifestyle, in that you're not, as somebody who tended to get bored quickly. I think it was a job where you'd be doing lots of different things and constantly changing. So I ended up pursuing that, and got my first management consulting job about a year after graduating college, and just took it from there. Really, my first few consulting jobs were not in SaaS or tech specifically, and they weren't in pricing. I drifted into those areas about 10 years into my consulting career.
So, talk to me a little bit about heroes, inspirations. Who has that been for you?
Oh, heroes. That's a great one. Do you mean just general heroes, Joe, or like specific heroes within the business world?
I think they kind of go hand in hand. Whatever has been the most inspirational or the most seminal in your development.
Wow, that's a really good question. I had not thought about that before this point. Um, I guess an early hero for me was Stephen Fry. And as you know, I hope that you guys can still tell from my accent. I'm British originally. I grew up in the UK.
Yeah.
And Stephen Fry is a pretty well-known British comedian. He was Yeah, he went to the Cambridge Footlights as I did when I was in college, and then he went into comedy full time. He had a sketch show with Hugh Laurie, who went on to star in House. I think a lot of American audiences know him from that.
Yeah.
But he was also in a lot of TV shows that I really liked at the time, like Blackadder. And Stephen Fry, like in all his public appearances, always had this ability to sort of come across as very kind and very warm, but really smart and very witty, and just engaging to watch. So I thought, in terms of interpersonal presence, that would be completely aspirational to me. I thought he had a great presence, and I thought he had an amazing career.
So, if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Well, Stephen Fry would definitely be one of them. He's still
Yeah.
with us. um, Other people, it's like the dinner party question, isn't it? I think Barack Obama I would put in there as well. I think Barack Obama is probably the best speaker that I have ever seen in my time. I would I think that would be super interesting to get deeper into what makes him tick.
So, what?
Um,
Oh, no, go ahead. You're good.
no, no, you go.
Oh, no, no, no. I was just wondering, talking about these kind of high-powered people that are obviously highly motivated and accomplished. What is that motivation for you? What gets you up every day? What gets you to do a quality job and to evolve as a human yourself?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to me is I really enjoy solving complex problems. And I really enjoy delivering a really high quality product that makes you sort of stand back and think, I did this and it was really great. And I think that's within the consulting career that I've chosen, it does give a lot of opportunity to do that, right? You're solving problems all the time. And I think I drifted into pricing strategy specifically because although people tend to think of it as being an area which is very numerical, it's all about numbers and moving price levels around. That's actually only really a small part of it. I mean, it's actually very creative. There's a lot of art involved in thinking about how the customer is going to respond to certain options that you give them. So you really have to think in quite an abstract way, put yourself in the mind of the customer and think through all these things. So it ends up being quite complex, right? There are lots of different levers that you can pull, a lot of different options that you have. You have to be able to weigh up all those different things, evaluate them, and decide what is the best thing to put forward. So I think the fact that does have the complexity that it is means that I really enjoy solving those kind of problems. They're always different. I get a real satisfaction out of being able to crack it. And then I think in terms of the quality, I mean, it's I always go back to sort of Steve Jobs and Apple and so forth. Like actually, he'd probably be one of my heroes that I would put in there as well. But I remember reading his biography and him talking about the fact that the guy was such a perfectionist that he would even want the insides of his computers to look perfect and look great. And there's a real craftsmanship to building that, even if not necessarily everybody sees it. And I've always felt the same way about the consulting deliverables that we would do. I mean, it's definitely true that the majority of the value comes from getting the answer right, but also being able to lay out the answer in a very clear way and to present it in a way that really resonates, and everybody can get on board with, is arguably harder than getting the answer right. And it just delivers this like extra level of value that I think not everybody can do to the same degree. So I think challenging yourself not only to get the answer right, but to be able to put all those extra layers of value on top of it delivers a really great product, and I get a lot of satisfaction from pushing for that.
So in your business career, what's been one of your best success stories?
It's a great question. There are lots of different things. Like, I mean, there's lots of specific projects that I could point to when we cracked a really difficult problem. But I think probably if I think bigger than that, there's like a larger thing. Probably the biggest success story for me is founding Monevate and turning that into the business that it is today. Um, I was at McKinsey for about 3 years before I left to found Monevate. And obviously, McKinsey is a massive consulting firm. I think it's about 25,000 people worldwide, very highly regarded, lots of visibility, lots of very talented people. You can call on an expert who's distinctive in any particular area that you are looking for. So there's this huge infrastructure and setup that means that you are just by being in the firm, you are set up to be successful for that. There's a lot of assumptions that are going to be made about you, positive assumptions, just by the fact that you are there, and in general, clients are going to come to you. And I always had aspirations to build my own firm, but I had all these fears about, if I was to go off and do this, would we actually be able to get clients? Would people come and want to do consulting with a small consulting firm? Would I be able to do it without the backing of McKinsey behind me? And it made me very hesitant to take that leap. I was thinking about building Monevate for quite a long time before I actually pulled the trigger. I ended up pulling it because I got very good counsels from some of the people in my network who encouraged me to take the leap. And as it happens, I found quite quickly that was able to do that, right? There was really a space, like a sector of clients that were these smaller companies that generally couldn't access this kind of premium level consulting support for the budgets that they had. So there was a real space for somebody to come on and do that really well. I found that clients would come to us. The value proposition that we were putting forward there would resonate, and it took up traction relatively quickly. It meant that we grew quite a lot. 3 years later, we're just a markedly different firm. So I think it's there's so many of these professional services businesses that that start off with one or two people and stay in that kind of lifestyle business size and scale, because that's, just generally what they can be, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel quite proud of the fact that, we've kind of taken this idea that could have been something small and grown it into something much more substantial.
So, of all of the things that you've done in your career up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Probably that. I think probably founding Monevate and making a success about it. There's a part of me that really wishes I'd done it earlier, but there's also a part of me that sort of realizes that I think things happen for a reason. They happen at the time that you're ready for them, not necessarily the time that you would like them to happen. So I'm glad that I was able to get there, even if, I would have loved to have got there 5, 10 years earlier.
So, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give that young version of you?
I think I think the 18-year-old version of me, it's interesting. I think when I was 18 and sort of college age, I think I needed to be thinking a little more about what I wanted to do and what I could do for a career. So I think part of my advice would be, you don't have to make any decisions now, but do start thinking about what are the paths that you could take. What do you like doing? What would be some careers that would really tap into the things that you like doing, and start planning for that. Because there is a part of me that really wishes that I'd been a little more proactive when I was in college about getting internships and about setting myself off in the way that I wanted to go. But I think I would also tell myself to not over rotate on that. I see so many young professionals starting off, and they have this very rigid plan for themselves, right? I'm going to go to this law firm, and I'm going to make associate by this time and make partner by this time, and it's all kind of laid out. And they feel that if they take a left turn at any point here or do something else, they've kind of failed in this plan that they've laid out. And I think having that attitude means that you're less open to those big opportunities that might come your way. I think it's good to be open to those and to be willing to take diversions and follow your gut in those situations. And I think also, it's hard to see it when you're 20 and looking forward, but when you're 40, 50 and looking backwards, I think the 10-year plan that you laid out for yourself when you were 20 doesn't actually turn out to be that consequential. So I think it's kind of, setting yourself up with a vision for what you would like to do, but not be too rigidly tied to it.
So, at the end of the day, James, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am?
Uh,
That's great. That's a really great question. Yeah, try not to be sort of trapped into who I would like to be as who do I think I actually am. I mean, I hope that overall I'm a compassionate, kind, thoughtful person. I'm a husband and a father to three boys, and that's a super important part of my life. I hope that I also carry those attributes into the people that I work with when I act as a leader in my firm and a consultant to all of my clients. Um, and I hope that I'm somebody who has something, different and distinctive to give. I've certainly tried to cultivate an area of expertise that not a lot of other people have, so that I can have this specific um, value proposition and add value to companies where others couldn't. So I hope I'm somebody who can do that.
Wonderful. James, if anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about what you're doing, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, best place for them to do that would be to connect with me on LinkedIn. My handle is James D. Wilton on LinkedIn, and we can take it from there.
Wonderful. This has been great, James. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Best of luck with everything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.